Hello, welcome back to From the BLN, the Burnley podcast. This is a rapid reaction to Manchester City 5, obviously, Burnley 1. We've had a lot of 5s at that ground over the years. It was a tough one to take. Andrew Greaves is in Istanbul on a happy weekend in Istanbul, and but impressive team spirit to join us live, having watched the game. And Woody, of course, is with us as always. Greasy, let's start with you then. You've watched that game. You've taken it all in. What were your impressions?
I mean, it's not a 5-1er, is it? I mean, it's essentially, until the end when it runs away, it's a 3-1er. I think if you come away with a 3-1, I think I said that in the group, you can kind of hold your head high. I think we were impressive for a big spell. I think that kind of last 20 minutes of the first half, we looked good. Get ourselves back in it, didn't fold, didn't collapse. Ultimately, City will do what City will do, won't they? I mean, they will beat teams by, if not that margin, they'll comfortably beat teams who don't lay a glove on them. We've not had huge amount of chances, but we've made Pep's half-time team talk a little bit more uncomfortable than you perhaps expect us to when you go one behind, as we did. So yeah, I mean, it won't dictate a season. It won't determine a season. It's annoying. It's not good for the goal difference, but. It felt like slightly different to perhaps some other thrashings at Man City. I mean, it weirdly, I don't know why. It's like, I think it's that reaction, the reaction to it. And again, you make changes in terms of the substitutions and that kind of perhaps disrupts us. But listen, if we'd have come away with 3-1, we'd have gone, best result we've had at City for years. We've still got beat. We've still got bugger all in the way of points, but Parker will look at that and kind of go, there's bits there, there's transitions, there's periods of play where we look like we're competitive, and that's the key into this season.
Yeah, I thought there was that good spell of play we had at the end of the first half. We were popping passes around, one-touch, two-touch passes that we haven't done before when we've played at City. The technical gap has always looked huge when we've played City, and I don't think it did there until the last 20 minutes when obviously the defence fell to bits. But Woody, you've pointed out on a few of these pods the slow starts we've been making this season. Again, we concede in 12 minutes.
Yeah, for all the good stuff we did, we were outdone by some either really bad decision making at times or some really woeful schoolboy defending at times. And it's like, you know that even to have a sniff at 3-1, you've got to be above and beyond some of the stuff that you've been doing for the previous parts of the season. And it's like some of it were just pure calamity. That final goal was abject, and it was like the first time East Steve had properly challenged for an header all afternoon. And it's like then Brian, no wonder he hasn't been bagged in 3.5 millennia when he gets a chance in the 6-yard box and decides to turn away. Why has he got a nosebleed there? Some of the stuff that Walker was doing there on the right hand side, getting into fantastic positions, because everything's at such a premium. Those fine lines become glaringly obvious, don't they? And it's like just these final balls. And I think that period where we were good during the second half, the first half, and it is extremely refreshing to be at City and to hold ourselves back into a game. And like you say, it didn't feel like the regular, we'll tick that off as a 5-1 and put a line underneath it. We actually showed a little bit of something. But again, all of a sudden, halfway through the second half, you're 3-1 down because you went for a piss. And that's it, game over. And they haven't exactly completely outplayed us, but we've still found ourselves in that same position.
Really, didn't they?
I mean, yeah. I mean, they weren't. Let's put it this way: they weren't quite all over us, absolutely battering us. But it's not like they'll come away and say, "We broke it. We had to break too much of a sweat with that one." So it's one of those, isn't it? I mean, we'll see. We'll see after this next set of results, next set of games that we were just talking about, and try and define our season a bit against that, because I won't do it against City away, especially.
No, I mean, you go into that game, and as we did on the preview, Greaves, you're sort of saying, I'm going to be hiding behind the sofa for most of the Saturday afternoon. It was just, I think that little spell where we got back into our game, it's, you know, you were saying that it's the hope that kills you, and it was that sort of 20 minutes, half an hour, where we sort of thought, oh, you know, we're actually playing football against Manchester City here, and Foster was holding the ball up. We were knocking passes off him. Jadon Anthony was causing problems. Both fullbacks were getting forward and being influential in the game. And suddenly you thought, you know what, this is very different from how we'd gone there under Dyche, and obviously, you know, forget about the company games. But then it just it didn't. Half-time seemed to come at a bad time for us, didn't it?
Yeah, and that's the problem, I think, when you're a promoted club or a club like ours who, you know, I think the last time we won at City was, what, 1963 or something like that. I think I saw somebody post that. And of course, look, over the last few years, we've ticked off Old Trafford and Anfield and all of these places where we'd not won for years and years. I think that, yeah, the biggest problem is that when you're on top, you really, really need to make that being on top count. And sometimes the referee's whistle just allows them to come off the ropes a little bit. I'm not saying, you know, it weren't rope-a-dope. We didn't have City kind of absolutely on the knees, but it's that kind of an extra 5 minutes, you might just kind of sneak one ahead. And I always think, you know, it's a bit simplistic looking. I always think to myself, you know, if you go 1-0 up against a Liverpool or United or a City or an Arsenal, they've got to score 2 to beat you. And, you know, ultimately they ended up getting 5. But you just think it just gives you that cushion. You know, if they get 1 second half and win the second half, it's 2-2, you come away with a draw. Like I say, very, very uber simplistic way of looking at it. Going in at 1-1, you just kind of think, right, we came out, I think, you know, we caused them a couple of problems for 2 or 3 minutes second half, came out with an energy. And then it fit into kind of that pattern. And I think you said in our group, kind of, it feels like it's settling into a pattern kind of 5 minutes before they scored. Parker won't, you know, Parker's a bit not getting too high, not getting too low. He'll be disappointed, you know, having done well against Liverpool and held Liverpool at bay. He'll be disappointed that we've kind of lost all sense of how to defend, how to play football in that last 20 minutes. And he'll be disappointed with the goal difference, but that'll possibly be the only thing that he'll be disappointed. He'll be saying to the players, look, we went toe-to-toe. It weren't good enough. We fell short. We were certainly a hell of a lot better than we were against Cardiff midweek. And I think that's you know, he's very much one of them. Look, Villa next, you know, or the international break, is it? And then Villa, then Leeds United. Them 2 games get a positive result at Villa, positive result against Leeds. That's your season. You know, we are probably still where we would expect to be at this stage, 4 points. You know, I think 4 points is probably par at this point, given the start we had. Probably should have had 6 points with the point at United, point against Liverpool, but it is where we are. We probably didn't chalk them games up as ones where we'd necessarily get positive results. So he will be looking at that. He'll have a chart this year. I don't have a chart, but he'll have a chart where he goes, what are we expecting to get? And I think he'll think 4 points. Yes, we might dip into the relegation zone depending on how Villa get on against Fulham. But I think he'll be thinking it's about par for the course. We're not out of touch. We're not rooted to the bottom. There's a couple of teams around us that are absolute nightmares. You know, let's go from here. You know, now after the international break, this is when the season starts.
Yeah, it's Villa next Sunday, of course.
Then the international break, of course. Yeah.
Then the international break. Then at home to Leeds and away to Wolves. It's a big 3 games, is that? For Woody, we've got to mention Esteve. 2 own goals is a fair rarity in the Premier League. I think he's just the 6th, they said on television, to have done it. Craig Dawson, who somehow didn't become a Burnley player, is also one of those. But we in our preview pod, we decided that "In Steve We Trust" was going to be our slogan for this game. It's almost like the curse of the preview pod, that one, isn't it?
Well played.
It didn't go well for him, did it?
No, not. I mean, I won't blame him for, you know, the own goals by any stretch. It's just one of those things, isn't it? But I don't know. There was
especially the second one. I think they're just
exactly. But I think for the header across it was a City's second goal, wasn't it?
Mm-mm.
You know, you could see that coming a mile off. You know what I mean? The one thing about City today is they seemed like quite laboured. Everything was going out to Doku, you know, and it was just like we'll float something in, and it was just another kind of bit of a nothing ball that came across, and like Eastie didn't really, you know, Haaland just basically bullied him for the header back in, and then you know, Ekdal was a 2 yards away from his man, and it was just the basics and the simples, and Eastie seemed to struggle a little bit with that today, and I don't know, and plenty of other centre-halves and sides will have the same problem against Haaland. It's not unique to Eastie, is it? But it's just that times that, you know, his Rolls Royce looks a little bit more like Jimmy Savile's than maybe something, you know, a little bit more up to date. That's all. But
I mean, it was an awful mess at the end, wasn't it, with him and Ekdal going for the same ball, and then Haaland through, and you don't even doubt that he's going to put that away. Yeah. There was some frustration, some individual positives to finish with. I mean, I thought we saw again a lot of. I think Woody's right that Kyle Walker in the final third made some bad decisions and played some bad balls, but he was also all over the field and doing a lot of good work and putting his foot on the ball and really leading that team. But Greavesy, anyone catch your eye worthy of an honourable mention in a day like today?
Yeah, I think a couple of players, really. I think Walker, as you mentioned, Hartman's such a clever ball for the goal. I really like Hartman.
Wasn't it?
You know, he's such a joy to watch. And I've kind of watched him the last couple of games. And against Forest, he was the first one to kind of do the clap to the crowd, gave his shirt away, and then he's straight down the tunnel. He feels like a bit of a bit almost Connor Roberts-esque. It must be something about being a fullback, where he's kind of like, he clearly loved by his teammates. You know, he spoke very highly of learning from Kyle Walker. But I think he's kind of a job done, you know, get the job done, etc. Really like him. I don't think Laurent played that badly in terms of, again, that kind of role that we've kind of pushed him into, because we don't appear to trust, you know, Worrell or the returning Humphreys, let's say. You know, I think Humphreys kind of coming back from his injury is probably the reason why he's not part of a three-man centre. Foster, I thought, worked hard again. You know, he's holding the ball up. But, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's really one of them games where, you know, I think most Burnley players will struggle to score above 6.5 in the general scheme of things in the player ratings without really, apart from key moments, really doing that much wrong, you know, when you're up against the side that City have. So, yeah, I think, you know, it's one of them, tick it off, move on. Don't get too stressed about it. Villa next. You know, you've got to go there with a positive attitude and knowing you can probably get something against Villa. We don't have that bad a record, you know, against Villa. We just need that little scratch of luck, I think, sometimes, or maybe VAR not to get involved.
Yeah, final word, Woody. I mean, we came into this game. If you'd have been asked for a prediction, most people would have said we get beaten 5-0. Does that game change anything really? Do you think? Is that just it's paper form? It's what we expected. We're where we are in the league.
Yeah, put a line under it. Move on. You've got 2-3 games coming up, and they shouldn't be season definers, but it's a big set of 3 games next, and we'll have a better idea come November where and whereabouts we are. City, just move on. Bollocks to them.
Bollocks to it, indeed. Yeah. Right, we'll do that. We'll move on, but we will be back with a proper debrief. And on that debrief, we are going to look ahead a little bit to that series of 3 games and put this City one behind us very quickly, like we hope the players do as well. Until then, Greavesy, have a good time in Istanbul. Enjoy your weekend. Woody, all the best, and to everybody else, up the Clarets.